Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to discuss the difference between rebuilding a piece or iterative or Theseus shipping
hmm
versus a rewrite and how to tell the difference. And this was brought up, a longtime listener of the show was telling me, hey, I've got this technical founder and he has, and we were talking about a automation system, which for those of you who don't know, automations is a very common SaaS piece of a SaaS where the users can set up workflows to happen automatically in the background. And because they are a core piece of a SaaS, they're often built early, and then people want to rebuild them. And
hmm
so you get, you've got automations one, and then automations two, and then automations three, and so on and so forth. And so this story is like, oh well, the founder, we have this automations thing, and it's the automations builder is a decade old and it's in the wrong technology. And the founder got annoyed and he had an epiphany. He's like, oh, I know what it should be. I know what it should look like. And he's a technical founder. And so after a decade, he sat down with an LLM and he's like, boom, knocked it out. And it's gone from PHP to React. And here's this new thing. And everyone says, oh, wow, this is great. And so then this person's like, well, does this
Well,
invalid? Hmm?
they're gonna say, "Oh wow, it's so great," because he's the leader.
Yes, yes, because he's the leader, and I'm sure it was perfect, and it had the
Yeah,
cats
oh,
and the dogs sleeping together. Uh,
yeah.
but take it as a given for
hmm
the purpose of this story that it is actually great.
Okay, sure.
And in the reality underlying the story, the existing thing was bad, so
Yeah.
almost anything would be much better than the existing thing. And it had a technology shift which needed to happen because the original one was server side PHP, and this
hmm
is React. Well, it's not server side entirely. So anyway, moving along. And so it's like, oh, well, does this invalidate your thing of we'll never rewrite? Because here the founder has rewritten this. And I said, well, no, because he's exactly what we're talking about. He's Theseus shipping. He has
hmm
rebuilt a part of it. He's changed the piece. He has changed the presentation layer
Right.
because he didn't change any of the backend endpoints, which also means he didn't change any of the model. And so what he has done, it's entirely 100% backwards and forwards compatible with the existing stuff.
Yeah.
There's the UI thing with the PHP version. There's this UI in the React version that's new.
Uh-huh.
And if you made one, it would work in the other and vice versa because they're using the same endpoints. Uh, and more importantly, even if you took that as, well, an automation system is much more than a presentation layer because it's by design, you're talking about a scheduler and a runner and all of the retries and all, like there is so much encompassing of an automation system that even if it's a well built system and you have a very fancy UI, the UI is never going to be more than 10% of this whole thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's like if you tell somebody you remodeled your kitchen, and what you really did was paint the walls and take a cabinet down, but all the plumbing's the same. You didn't have to change anything about the kitchen itself. It's like it's a very it's an interesting thing to say. I would never say I remodeled my kitchen with such a small change. It's the same thing. You just added a different kind of presentation view to it.
Right. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, what we're talking about here is people use these words interchangeably and how you can tell the difference. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that's the difference between a remodel and a gut rehab.
Yeah. We've had trouble, I think, in general with these rewords.
There's
Rebuild, refactor, rewrite, remodel, like because
rehab.
rehab. We're using unfortunately there's like this terminology of what it means in English and what
Mm-hmm.
it means in technology. And so I remember we've even had an episode on this, like, what do we mean? Because one person said, don't rewrite it, rebuild it. And to anybody else who's not even tech savvy, if you said you're going to redo something versus
Mm-hmm.
rebuild something, right? That sounds like the same thing,
Right.
right? And so somebody else was making their own case that rebuild means, oh no, don't build an exact replica of the old system, build it towards current modern day business needs versus what you built 10 years ago for the old business needs. And I'm like, sure, I like your definition of that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you sell that to everybody is what you mean by rewrite. Because when we're talking about never rewrite or the rewrite trap, we're saying never do this huge big bang rewrite of the entire system.
Right.
But you don't want to say that phrase over and over and over and over and over again. So you say never rewrite. But you lose some of that context each time. So it's difficult when someone comes back and says, well, you said don't rewrite it. I'm like, in our case, that's just a refactor. Well, isn't
Right.
refactoring rewriting it? Well, in our case, refactoring means changing, making the code simpler, but not changing the behavior. Right.
Right. That goes back to off the very first episode we ever did on the podcast.
Yeah.
One of the comments afterwards was, "Oh, so you're saying don't rewrite, instead rewrite."
Yep. So it's confusing, and
It's confusing.
so it's a real language problem because of the synonyms there. So in the book that we're writing, there's even a page on definitions, like to let people know. People use a lot of these terms interchangeably, and it's important. It's not splitting hairs here. It's very important to be specific with what you mean when you say these things. If someone says, "Hey, I want to rebuild automations," and you go, "Hey, well, what do you mean by that?" And they go, "I think it needs a fresh coat of paint and it looks kind of weird." Like, oh, thank God. I thought you meant rebuild the back end in PHP from PHP to Ember or whatever, or I guess PHP,
It
Ember's
would
front
make
end.
Java.
Yeah, rebuild the data structure behind it, so it's not even using the same MySQL and it's using something else instead. That's as we've been calling it, a big bang rewrite. How we completely change the entire thing. And we even have an episode talking about, is a front end rewrite a rewrite. So we can go back and point them to this episode.
I had
Right.
forgotten.
So
Yes, we did do an episode.
we
on
did
that.
we did one on that because the same thing got brought up before. But then this sounds closer to what they're talking about, which is more of a front end thing. But the thing that I want to drill home to any listeners that haven't gotten the message this far is, plain and simple, all we're saying is everything should be delivered safely and iteratively. So you should never take on a huge project in and of itself. You should always break it down into pieces that are easy and safe to deliver. If there's nothing else, screw all the rewrite and redo and rebuild and whatever. The Theseus shipping is just saying iterative delivery. And if you can deliver the front end piece safely and decoupled from any other things you want to do, that's what we want you to do. We're saying don't do everything, do tiny things. That's the message.
And there's two specific things here that I want to highlight with this story. Is one, because in this case it was only a front end thing and all the back end stayed the same.
Yeah.
It was completely compatible with the existing stuff, and it was backwards and forwards compatible. So you could release it like in an A/B fashion, be like, "Oh, would you like to see what's coming up?" And you say, "This is the beta version," and you can show it to customers, and they can say, "Oh, there's a bug." And you go, "Oh, well, fine, go back to the original." You can get feedback, right?
Right, and that stays in line with our concepts of feature flagging things, gating things, rolling them out, strangler fig if we want to deprecate some other things later, different endpoints or different features. Yeah.
Right. And the second thing is, you always have working software. And this it's an agile thing, but like at the end of the release, you have working software. So in this case, if you redo the front end in one large chunk and then boom, you now have working software. But if you had done automations 2.0 and built a new data model that it contained all the things that you learned over the last decade from running automations, which I'm sure there are plenty, and you're like, "Oh, this could be a so much better data model that would work so much better. The code would be so much easier if we could just start over with a new data model." And I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
You can fit the problem because now you know so much more about the problem scope. You could build a new data structure that would fit the problem scope better, but now it's not backwards compatible. Now you also need a new execution system and a new monitoring system and all this other new things.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. Now you're not Theseus shipping. You're not iteratively delivering. You're doing a rewrite.
We should change the name from Never Rewrite to always Theseus ship. Maybe that sells our message better.
Yes, that sounds like time. good selling. I'm reminded.
That's confusing.
I grew up in Southern California, and I'm reminded of a piece of nonsense that it's not nonsense, but in Southern California in the 80s when I was growing up, the new if you the taxes the amount the taxes could go up on a house, property taxes, were
Hmm.
limited. But if you built a new house, they would just start over. So it'd be like, oh, well, you're paying $2,000 of property taxes, and you should be paying $10,000, but we don't want to basically push you out of your home, so it can only go up 5% a year,
Okay.
right? So what happened is in Southern California, well, in California, property values went way up, and people were losing their houses because they couldn't afford property taxes, even though they hadn't done anything. And so they said,
Mm.
okay, well, we're going to cap the rate of change on existing houses for property tax. So if you sold your house or you built a new house, then it would jump. But if you kept living there, and so people would do rehabs,
Okay.
uh, and basically this loophole in the law, as long as you left one wall standing, it was a rehab for tax purposes. And so you would come and you would see them knock down the whole house except for one wall. And then they build a brand new house, but keep the one wall. And so it was a rehab and not a new house for tax
Interesting.
purposes
Okay.
because the tax
Huh.
had it, because they had defined this is the definition between a new house and a rehab,
Okay.
right? But this is the silly kind of thing that law constraints have, and software has the same kind of silly
Yeah. Yeah.
constraints. They're just not as somewhat absurd as this one, but where you just if it's because if it had been two walls, they would have figured out a way to keep two walls, right? It's just
Yeah.
wherever you
Oh
draw
yeah.
the line.
If it can be, what is that? If it can be
Gaming the
measured, it can be
system.
gamed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, with one wall standing, should we? I think we're done.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds
done
good.
here. All right. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is always the easiest ship.
Yes.
Never rewrite.
Never rewrite.